us. So let me welcome you all back to the Navigating the Publishing World podcast. I'm Martha Reed, and I'm the moderator for the independent self-publishing session. This is also hosted by the Florida Gulf Coast chapter of Sisters in Crime, so I want to give everybody a salute. I am also the self-published author of the John and Sarah Jared Nantucket Mysteries and a new series that just launched in October. This is the Crescent City NOLA Mystery Series. What I'd like to do is start by sharing a high-level overview of the indie self-publishing option. And then, just like the previous panel, I'll bring in some panel experts to really dig deep and share some great information with you. Many of these topics are also covered in the handout that Lisa sent out and emailed to everyone this morning. So my goal is to give you a high-level overview, and then when we reach the panel stage, we'll really dig in and get into the nitty-gritty. Before we start, I just want to cover a little bit of housekeeping for anyone who might be joining this session of the panel. The best browsers to use are Google Chrome and Firefox. If you're using these browsers and still having technical problems, you can try clicking the help button at the top right of your screen and clicking the compatibility mode. This is usually enough to correct whatever's going on. You can also click the Get Audio Video Help button in the lower left corner of your screen. During this presentation, just like before, you can use the chat room feature for any comments. If you do have questions for me or the panel later, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. Separating the questions from the comments makes it easier for us to track them so we can get them in the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And if you see a question that you like, you can click it, select it in the Ask a Question box, and that shows us which question has the greatest audience response, so that we know how to answer them, prioritize them in the session at the end. So, all right, well, let's get started with our presentation. And what I'd like to do is start with some definitions, because a lot of these terms come up in conversation, and there's some overlap. And I just want to make sure that we're all really clear on exactly what indie and self-publishing mean. So the terms independent publisher and self-publisher are often used interchangeably in conversation, but there is a distinction. And the distinction is that independent or indie publishers are usually small publishing companies that commission books from authors and publish them at the company's expense, just like the bigger publishing houses. If these indie publishers are very small, you'll hear the term micro publisher or micro press used. Okay, self-publishing means that the author retains all control and publishes their book without the involvement of a micro press or a larger publishing house. With the self-publishing model, the author bears all the costs, all the responsibilities, and all the risks of publication, but they also, in the end, earn a higher share of the profit. So that's the distinction. And since in the last panel we kept talking about going to conferences and hanging out in bars, you will hear self-published authors quite often call themselves indie published. But there is that distinction. So there's also another term out there that's called hybrid publishing, and people are using that. And so I wanted to define that. So hybrid publishing has two definitions. A hybrid publisher is a company that offers authors a selection of publishing services. Perhaps you want to self-publish, but you don't want to be in charge of your own cover, or you don't want to format your own document, or you don't want to do the marketing or promotion. So a hybrid publishing company is a shop that offers all of these individual services in one place, so that self-published authors don't have to go out and seek out like a graphic designer or someone for PR individually. Okay. Some hybrid publishers offer a full service, including marketing and promotion, and some do not. And there are a lot of hybrid publishers out there. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about it because if this is a path that you want to follow, you're going to have to decide which services you want, and it very quickly gets into the weeds on that. So we're going to keep this a little bit at a higher level. Okay, a hybrid author is also a definition out there. And a hybrid author is an author who uses both the traditional publishing model and the independent or self-publishing models for their work. And we're seeing more and more of this. Like this hybrid author model is getting very popular recently. For instance, a writer may publish a contracted series or two with a traditional publishing house under a pen name, right? We have that example. They may publish their short stories under the traditional curated anthology model through the conferences or through any online publishing anthologies. And then they may also use an indie press or self-publishing for their other stories, or perhaps a series that wouldn't get picked up by the traditional model side. So you see that these hybrid authors have the flexibility to have a foot in both camps. It's double the work, but it does offer the flexibility to do the work that you want to do. And as I said, as more and more traditionally published authors are regaining the rights to their backlists, the hybrid author model is becoming more popular. Let me just take a pause here to explain a recent case that I saw that was really interesting. There was a woman author who had published 15 romance novels, and she got the rights back to all 15 of her books. And then what she did is it was brilliant, actually. Each of these books had a different male character. And what she did is she wrote an entirely new book based in a high school where all of these 15 guys had all gone to the same high school. And that book, she self-published. The brilliant part about it is when she did her promotion to get her new self-published book out, her readership glommed onto the fact that there were these 15 other books out there already written, already published about each of these characters. So when she self-published one book, because she had the rights to her backlist, she actually released 16 books. It was a really brilliant marketing strategy, and it kind of illustrates some of the flexibility that self-published authors are finding in this brave new world. Okay. So I guess the next part that I wanted to go over is we'll go into what it takes to follow the independent, self-published, and micropress paths when we get to the experts on the panelists, because we have an amazing range of information for you with our panelists. Those folks are the real experts, and I hope you brought your questions for them, because this is a wonderful opportunity to get your questions answered. But I did want to talk about my experience before we switch over to the panel, because I've just published my 4th self-published mystery novel, Love Power. I published it in October, so the experience is still very fresh in my mind, and I'd like to share my publishing experience with you. Okay, the question that comes up is, and it came up in the previous panel, is why did I decide to self-publish? 15 years ago, when I got started, after I finished writing my first novel, I started to follow the traditional publishing route. I queried agents. I submitted my manuscript to publishing house slush piles. I started drafting the next book to get, the next one in the pipe ready for when I got picked up. And it just was taking so long. It was taking like a year or two to even get the letters out and the queries out and the synopsises out and synopsi out. And at the time, I knew that it would take years. And then I attended a writers' conference. You have to remember this is 15 years ago. And for the first time, I heard about this whole new thing. It was going to be called digital publishing. And it was pretty much Amazon and Barnes and Noble were in the lead on it using Kindle and Nook. They were kind of duking it out. And the premise was that ebooks were going to revolutionize the way readers bought books. Plus, it was going to change the author royalty and reporting structure. And that's what got my attention. And the reason was that in addition to having my book ready to go, I had already sent it to an editor, and it was as good as I could make it. I possibly make it. I'd also worked for 10 years in the commercial financial printing industry. So I already knew things, how to put a book together. I understood fonts and point sizes and pagination and title pages and page counts. And now, since I had the manuscript in my hand and I had this experience in publishing, I had the missing piece because I had the content. So once I had that, and I listened to this ebook, this initial ebook presentation, it dawned on me that I could now actually access my readers through the retail distribution channels the same way all the bookstores and the publishing houses did. And then using the print on demand feature, which is the acronym is POD, print on demand, I could get my printed books into bookstores, libraries, and onto conference sales tables. So the more I explored this avenue, the more I thought, I'm not so sure why I can't do this for myself. You know, as long as I'm willing to do the work. And like I said, I was doing the work professionally anyway. So it seemed like a logical next step. Yes, I did need to hire a professional editor on my manuscript, and I needed to hire a graphic designer for my covers. But I like maintaining that level of control anyway. I like having the input on what I think my cover should look like. That I was perfectly comfortable with that idea. The other thing was I was going to have to market and promote my books myself. That's a big step. That is a big piece of the business. Let me tell you right now, my mornings are drafting manuscripts and my afternoons are marketing and promotion. And that includes advertising, blog tours, the whole 9 yards. But anyway, I was also already hearing from authors that they were already doing their own promotion. That the publishing houses, the larger publishing houses, were backing away from these book tours that were earlier mentioned. The money just wasn't there to support new authors that way. So these authors, these traditionally published authors were already maintaining their own websites. They were managing their own newsletters, creating their own blog tours, and making friends in their online communities, even before being offered their publishing house contracts, meaning that through their agents, when they went to the publishing houses were saying, "Oh, well, show me your numbers. Like, how many readers do you have? How many interested people do you have?" So if they're already doing the work ahead of time, and I thought if I was going to do the legwork anytime, what did I need an agent or a publishing house for? I just couldn't understand. I couldn't come up with an idea of what the value add was. If I was going to be doing the work anyway, why wasn't I going to keep the royalty or a higher percentage of the royalty? Anyway, another important distinction is that when I decided to self-publish, I'm able to tell the story that I want to tell. Just as a little bit of a sidebar, at these conferences, I was meeting writers who had publishing contracts, and talk about pen names. They even had stories they didn't want to write. but the publishing house thought that this next hot topic would be a good new series. And so these folks were taking on contracts and writing books that their heart wasn't really in. And I don't write 2 books a year. I write 1 book a year. That might change now that I'm retired, but and I thought, I really want to get my story out. I want to publish the story that I want to tell, and self-publishing gave me the tools to do that. All right. So I should mention one caveat. And it was mentioned in the earlier panel about vanity presses. When I started 15 years ago, self-publishing was up against a real stigma. And that was, if you introduced yourself as a self-published author, everybody immediately assumed that you were a vanity press. Now, a vanity press, which is also known as a vanity publisher or a subsidy publisher, this is a publishing house that gets paid by the author to publish their book, and they will pretty much publish anything. They don't care what it is, as long as you're going to pay to have your book published. Okay, that is a completely distinct thing from self-publishing. Okay, self-publishing, I do the work, but I also determine the content and do all of the marketing. I don't hand the book off to someone and then pay them to do it. When I decided to self-publish, I was warned by more than one established writer that once I was branded a self-published or indie author, that I would be committing career suicide. And that going forward, no agent or publisher would be interested in handling my work. I was told this more than once, and I took it very seriously. Let me emphasize that if you take the self-published path, that you may run into some of that residual prejudice, which is what it is. It's not nearly as bad as it was 15 years ago, because so many hybrid authors are out there and they're doing great work and they're being very successful. But there is still a little bit of that in some pockets and in some publishers. So you just have to be aware of it. It's not a pitfall. You just need to be aware that you might run into that and be prepared for it. Also, initially, when I went to conferences, there was some difficulty getting panel assignments. And this was because the conferences were sponsored by the major publishing houses, and there's no business sense for them to actually fill the panels with self-published or indie authors, because we're actually undercutting their business model. But the booksellers at the conferences were always willing, and they still are, to take my books on consignment, but it's part of my business model as a self-published author, and I need to work with them separately on the side for these conferences to get my books on the tables. And thankfully, with more writers transitioning to the hybrid author status, the conference author hurdle, the barrier has really come down. It's pretty much resolved itself, because so many folks that come to these conferences are curious about indie or self-publishing that I'm now being invited to panels to talk about it. In addition to talking about my mysteries, I'm starting to see that open up quite a little bit more. But it could also be that I've been in the business marketplace now for 15 years, and so people have come to, appreciate the information that I'm able to offer on my mysteries and on my self-publishing. So, all right. From my October experience when I published my last novel, let me just go over what I've learned. First off, we will go over more of this in more detail. Wait a second, I have to check my phone. Oh, okay, we're good. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty here, because our panelists are going to go over this in great detail. But I will guarantee you one thing, and that's with self-publishing, the technology will have changed since the last time you used it. It is unbelievable how hot this market is right now. Um, a decade ago, creating digital or EPUB files, it was laborious but relatively simple. You added styles to a stripped out Word document. You created a print specific PDF cover, and you loaded your book into Amazon or Smashwords, and then you went on to launch your marketing campaign. That was pretty much it. Nowadays, what I learned in October is the current digital ebook world has been completely revolutionized. Right now, there are multiple leading self-publishing choices. And if you decide to follow this path, you're going to have to do the research yourself to figure out what it is that you want to do. But it's a plethora of options out there for you. What I discovered was that Amazon Kindle Direct, which is the acronym KDP, that it remains the major ebook player, generating nearly 70% of all ebook sales. However, digital distribution on your ebooks are restricted to Kindle devices only. That's Amazon being the big gorilla in the room. And you can create your ebook file and your trade paperback POD file through KDP, which makes it very convenient to cover both the digital ebook and your paper book options under one umbrella. And Amazon also has limited and unlimited distribution options depending on your personal goals. That's a very high synopsis. You could take weeks trying to figure out how you want to approach KDP, but it's definitely the big gorilla in the room. Next up is a program, it's a platform that I've used, but I've moved off of, but they're still out there, so I thought I should mention it. It's called Smashwords. Smashwords is the largest distributor, of ebooks to iBooks, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and to library directories. Okay, so for my Nantucket series, I put my ebooks on Amazon and Smashwords because I wanted the books available through the libraries. Smashwords also offers an audiobook creation and a distribution option. But new to me in October is this new platform called Draft to Digital. The acronym is D2D. And this is a super easy self-publishing, they're calling it an aggregator. And it has a global reach to digital storefront retailers, including Amazon, Apple. So you cover both bases there. You also get Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and the library. So this Draft to Digital is a really exciting new option that's out there. And it also offers ebook, print on demand, and audiobook options. So if you're going to look at the self-publishing route, and my suggestion is, in addition to Amazon, you also take a look at either Smashwords or KDP, D2D. There's also a new upstart that's coming in here. They're huge, actually. It's called BookBaby. And BookBaby offers a full self-publishing range and a publishing team, but you're going to have to pay for it. The other options, there are tutorials and there are guidelines on how to do the files that they need, but BookBaby will do it for you, but you're going to pay between $890 and roughly $2,000 for your book, depending on which services you pick. They do have a professional publishing team, so if you had questions or you ran into something that you just cannot figure out, you can, give them a call, and there's someone there that will help you with that item, but you are going to have to pay for it. Okay, so briefly then, what did I decide to do in October? Short and sweet, I self-published Love Power on Amazon, KDP as an ebook through Kindle, and then I used Amazon KDP for my trade paperback, but I also uploaded a professionally designed cover. Like I said, I like to have my own responsibility. I like to have my own control over what my covers look like because it's part of my brand. I used D2D for my EPUB file This is the one that's going out to the Kobo and the Apple crowd. And the nice thing about it is the difference with D2D is it only took minutes to format my document, my book, which was a terrific surprise because the last time I did it, it took hours. So there's been some real progress in formatting. KDP in October had an improvement where I could now order ARCs, which are advanced reader copies, because some of my reviewers prefer paper versus sending them an ebook. That feature wasn't available the last time I tried to do it. It is now available. You can actually order ARCs. And then a roadblock, though, with Amazon is that Amazon only offers the Kindle ebook version for pre-sale. If you want to have trade paperbacks for sale as well, that sale actually has to wait until your official release date. So some authors like to get the marketing campaign started earlier. They might do giveaways, or they want to get the buzz going before the actual release date. So with Amazon, though, they've still got it absolutely focused on ebook versus ebook and trade paperback. That may change. I've heard that Amazon is taking a look at the way that the trade paperbacks are being printed and published, and so this time next year we may see something completely different. All right. So the surprise. Oh, I have to mention this. When I did the research for my marketing on the new book, the surprising takeaway was that you have to offer your readers a digital audiobook option. I had not considered that. I had always heard that the audiobook option, the demographic skewed more toward the men. And so that's not my demographic, so I hadn't followed up on it. But my research shows that in 2009, for the first time, U.S. audiobook sales outstripped ebook sales. And the most popular audiobook genre is mysteries, thrillers, and suspense. And in 2020, with the lockdown and COVID going on, research is now showing that most people are listening to audiobooks in their homes, and they're also listening to more books and for longer periods of time. So for me, my next step then is to research Directed Digital's Find a Way voice partner and see about producing audiobooks for my series, and to further expand the outreach on my sales. Now the question is, what will I do with my next book release next year? And if I'm going to gaze into my great crystal ball, because like I said, this changes weekly, I suspect I'll be using Directed Digital for everything as an aggregator. My Kindle Mobi files, my EPUB files for my trade paperback, print on demand, and possibly audiobook if I get that far. Just because hosting all of my files in one location just makes sense to me. Versus the way I have it now, where I have some files in one place and one platform and some files on the other platform. Cheryl was talking about Excel spreadsheets. I have one that tells me where my files are. But this could change. By the time I get to it next year, it could be a completely, entirely new world. So the question then is independent, excuse me for hitting my desk, is independent self-publishing or using a micropress the right choice for you? And this is a decision that you're going to have to make yourself, and that's why I'd like to bring in the panel experts now to go over some questions in more detail, and we'll also be able to go over your questions. So just a second, let me invite everybody in here. This may take just a minute, bear with me. All righty. One moment. Right. Hey, Abby.
Hi.
We've
How are
got you
you?
on. Good, good. I'm going to go ahead and I've got Gwen next.
Oh, you might get time to talk before it ends.
Okay, Gwen.
Hi.
And I don't see. Just a second. I don't see Louise. Let me see what we got here. One moment. Oh, I'm going to invite Louise. One moment, please.
Hello.
Have we got her?
You found her.
Oh, yay. Hi, Louise.
Hi.
You're my lost lamb. It's good to see you. All right. Okay. Well, let's start with, I'll go ahead and introduce our panelists then. And let's start with Louise. Louise Titchener is the author of over 40 published novels, including mystery, romance, and science fiction fantasy. She has taught mystery writing for Johns Hopkins Department of Continuing Education, as well as a number of other venues. She moved to Sarasota in 2012 and lived there with her retired philosophy professor husband. For relaxation, she likes to paint in several mediums, and her favorite is oil on canvas. She also likes to kayak in Little Sarasota Bay and takes long walks and bike rides to admire the bird life and the beautiful trees and flowers in the Sarasota area. Louise's most recently published mystery is Murder Mountain. This historic mystery is the fifth in her Oliver Redcastle mystery series. The fourth in the series, Trouble in Tampa, was awarded a Silver Palm by the Florida Writers Association. And currently, Louise is working on the sixth Oliver Redcastle mystery set in Florida in 1887. It's tentatively called Fatal Flowers. So I wanted to liven it up. I feel like I've been doing all the talking. Louise, why don't you take a minute or so and just tell us a little bit about this Oliver Redcastle mystery you're working on?
It's a series. I'm publishing those through Amazon. The first couple were published through a small publisher. I'm one of the writers who's recovered my rights. I wrote for Harlequin. I wrote for Harper Paperbacks. And I recovered my rights on I have about 20 books up, re-edited them and put new covers on them. But I have two series, the Tony Cordella Mystery Series and the Oliver Redcastle Historical Mystery Series. And Oliver is an ex-Union Army sharpshooter, an ex-Pinkerton detective, and he keeps trying to start a calmer life, but it never works. So it's been
Doesn't work.
In the 1980s. And
awesome. And I love the historic aspect of it. But all right, so let's move on then to our next panelist. This is Abby Vandiver. Abby is the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and internationally best-selling author she also writes as Abby Collette. She has always enjoyed writing and combining that with her gift for telling stories and love of mystery. This is why she became an author. She's a hybrid author because she has written as an indie as well as a traditionally published author. She has penned more than 25 books and short stories, and additionally, her first book published by Penguin Berkeley, A Deadly Inside Scoop in her new cozy mystery series, An Ice Cream Parlor Mystery, was recently released. Oh, there you go. Abby has a bachelor's in economics, a master's in public administration, and a Juris Doctor. Well, you guys this is just too, I can't keep up with you. A former lawyer and visiting college professor of economics, she resides in South Euclid, Ohio, and enjoys spending time with her grandchildren and facilitating self-publishing and writing classes at her local library. Abby, you want to give us a minute for some extra?
Sure. Well, I'm one of those people that went from self-publishing to traditional publishing. I never even thought about querying and trying to publish a book the traditional way. I started writing because I got sick and I was bedridden and I needed something to do. So I started writing books. And I didn't have any trouble. Actually, I was approached by the publisher and I was approached by an agent. I never queried anyone. So I didn't have any problems making that transition. But I do find, even though mostly now I'm doing traditional publishing, I enjoy the self-published aspects, not so much the control that you spoke about earlier, but I think it has a lot to do with pay. I first published a book, self-published a book in 2013. And from that time on, I have received a check every month from Amazon. So that's so much different than being traditionally published and you get paid, a third here, a third there. And I think that's one of the things I like most about it. And, publishing as often and as many books as you want. So this book that a Daily Inside Scoop just came out in May. I'll have another book, the second one in the series, it's called A Game of Cones. It'll be out in March. When I self-publish, though, I usually publish one a month. It's always best when you self-publish to have books keep coming. And I like that aspect of it because I can write a book in about 3 weeks. And so it keeps me busy.
Awesome. That's great. That's great information. Thank you. Next up is on our panel is Gwen Mayo. I just want to give a little introduction. Gwen is passionate about blending the colorful history of her native Kentucky with her love for mystery fiction. She currently lives and writes in Safety Harbor, Florida, but she grew up in a large Irish family in the hills of Eastern Kentucky. Her first novel was published by Pill Hill Press, but after they folded, she regained the rights to her work and teamed up with Sarah Glenn to form Mystery and Horror LLC. Along with their own works, their micropress publishes a mix of horror and mystery by other authors. Her stories have appeared in anthologies, online short fiction sites, and in microfiction collections. She belongs to Sisters in Crime, the Guppies, Derby Rotten Scoundrels, and the Florida Gulf Coast chapter of Sisters in Crime. She is also a member of the Short Mystery Fiction Society and the Independent Book Publishers Association. She attended the University of Kentucky on a poetry scholarship, but has an associate degree in business and a bachelor's degree in political science. She was a judge for the 2012 Derringers, which is the short story awards, and the coordinator for the 2011 Derringers. Interesting fact, Gwen was a brakeman and a railroad engineer from 1983 to 1987.
Wow.
I know. So Gwen, how about a minute's worth of extra color?
Sure. The first series I do is the Nessa Donnelly series, which is set in Kentucky in the 1870s. So we have a Florida and a Kentucky group that love the 1870s. I'm currently working with Sarah Glenn writing a cozy mystery travel series. And the first 3 books of it are set in Florida. The latest one is Murder at the $1 Million Pier, which came out last year. The 4th book of the series is going to be set in Colorado, since our Army nurse is finally mustering out. So, and that should pretty well cover what I do.
Awesome. All right. Well, I did have some questions for you that I'd like to dip into. And feel free to, this is a conversation, so, let's just get it started. I'm curious how the publishing world has changed since you started. Like we went through what I saw. What have you seen in publishing change?
Yeah, you want me to start?
Sure, Louise.
Sure. I started publishing in the 80s, actually. So there's been a huge change. It's like it's a different world altogether. But I wrote for Harlequin, and at that time, you had to find an agent first. I was reminded of all this traditionally published panel. You had to spend a year finding an agent, and then you had to spend years waiting for her to submit to various publishers. And then you had to spend another year before anything got published. And you probably had to wait another 6 months to get paid for it. So it was a long process. This and I don't know if you guys remember this, but there would be so many paperbacks would be sent out to bookstores, and they would be returned, a lot of them. And that whole issue is no longer a thing now that we have digital publishing. So it's saving a lot of trees. So there's that. But anyway, this is very liberating. Amazon is doing. I think it's very liberating to a writer. You don't have to go through all those gatekeepers, and you have a more opportunity to write what you want. So it's really big.
I haven't been writing as long as Louise. I've been writing since about 2013, and I've written probably 25 to 30 novels, and the first 20 were all self-published. And I did a lot of research when I first decided to self-publish, to see. I don't think I did as much as you did, Martha. I found Amazon. I found Smashwords first, and then I found Amazon, and I stuck with Amazon because I feel like it's too hard to market across so many online retailers. So Amazon has kind of evolved. They, with the self-publishing, they would give traditional publishers the ability to pre-order and to get books printed and do things, store their books with that they didn't do for us. So I think that I've been involved in the 7 years that I've been writing self-published books in Amazon coming into its own and understanding this new market, as you described it. And it hasn't been big changes. It's been, it used to be your digital books on Amazon, and you go to Create Space when they came out to do that, and now Amazon has taken the two and put them together. But I don't think it's hard. I'm under the mindset that it's easy to self-publish books, and those are the kind of classes that I teach. You write your book, you get into a writing community, you can find beta readers, you can find editors, you can find proofreaders to help you. I do my own covers. All my self-published books, I've done my own cover. So I've always taught that it's easy to get into. Just put your book up on Amazon, and whatever phase they're in right now, they're going to take care of your book and get it published for you. And then it's your job to market that book. So that's really the only change. I'm new to traditional publishing. This book, A Daily Inside Scoop, is the very first one that I've had to traditional publish. And other than the money coming in, I still have to have my own marketing platforms. I have to go out and book tours and things. They've put me in a few magazines, and I'm with Penguin. Penguin is the #1 publisher, but if you're not one of those lead books that they're putting all their money into, it's still on you to do marketing. So I do the same marketing. Someone told me, you can't take your traditionally published books and put them in the trunk of your car and sell them like you do your self-published books. And the whole time I thought, and why not? And of course, now I have some of my books in my trunk, and I don't sell them because those are the ones they sent me. But certainly I use them for display like I do here, or, to when I go out. So because I'm new, I haven't seen drastic changes, just small ones. And those are easy to ride, to get you through. You don't have to do a 180 to get on track.
Yeah, that's been my experience. I'd like to just take a step back, because you mentioned something that some of our folks may not know. You mentioned beta readers. Since we're doing definitions, do you want to explain what a beta reader is?
Well, a beta reader is someone that you get to read your book. Usually it's free. A lot of stuff, there are beta readers, of course, that charge, but usually you can find one in your writing community if you take the time to build up one, which I recommend you do, that will read over it. They'll tell you about the flow. They'll tell you about logic gaps. But the good thing about a beta reader is there's a lot of ex-English teachers that do it, or ex-editors that do it. they will also help you not only with the logic gaps and the flow and the continuity. They will put in the commas for you. They will tell you, your tense errors or run on sentences. So a lot of times while they're reading this book, they'll catch missing words and things. And it's almost as good as a complete edit. If they tell you things that are, there's fatal flaws to your book, of course, you may need help with a developmental editor. But there a lot of times other writers or they've taken on this job to read other people's books and to help you make sure that your book is at the right place to be published.
Awesome. Okay. Gwen, I wanted to touch base with you. I was curious about, in your biography, you mentioned that your series got dropped, and then what triggered you to actually create your own micro press?
Well, when my publisher closed, I was the first of a group of authors who wrote to her and asked for their rights back, because once other authors found out I was requesting them, they wanted to too. And some of them approached me and said, hey, could you publish our books since you're going to do your own? So I actually published 3 other authors before I published my own. Wow. And we limit it to about 6 books a year with the press because, we have a life. We don't get to write full time. And unlike my colleague here, I can't write a book in 3 weeks. No, not a chance. I tried doing Nano this year, and I think I'm right now right around 10,000 words. So it's not like I'm going to be setting any records for speed. But anyway, because we're a lesbian couple, Sarah and I had already had to form a limited liability company so that we could protect each other's rights to our work, because both of us are writers, and we wanted to make sure that there was not any interference from the outside if something happened to one of us. So we had the legal structure that we could just expand into publishing, and that made it a little easier for us because you do need a structure of a company if you're going to do other people's work. You can get away with doing your own with just adding it to your income taxes, but you need a company if you're going to do other people. But
yeah, I should mention that one of the things that I've done, I have a sole proprietorship for my work, because I created, when I self-published, I bought a selection of ISBNs, and I actually created my own imprint. Which I know you don't have to do with Amazon because you can use the ASIN instead of the ISBN. So that's interesting that there's definitely a business, corporate business side to it, no matter which path you take. I did have a question then. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, but you really have to look at your writing as a business.
Yeah. What is the one thing that you would tell someone, a newbie writer who is interested in using self-publishing? Louise, let's start with you. What's the one thing you would tell someone who wanted to do this?
I think it's pretty much the same as what they talked about in traditional publishing, and that is understanding what's involved. And I have to confess that when I published the first book, and I really didn't know what I was doing, and I paid a price for that. It has to be. It's easier now to have correctly formatted. At that time, you had to do it yourself, and I took an online course on how to do it, but I really didn't. I didn't have it right. So it's important to understand what's involved, and it's also it's always important to have your manuscript in as good shape as you can possibly get it.
Yeah.
And that does mean having beta readers. If you can find someone, when you launch that first book, you don't want to have to have it full of mistakes and typos. And when it runs through the Amazon will let you know if there are some spelling errors, but they don't catch everything. So you want your readers to have the best possible experience. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, where indie writers have more responsibility. A traditionally published writer does have an editor who will do that kind of work. As an indie, you do have to go over that. So that would be my advice, is to inform yourself about this and be able to do it.
Okay, Abby, how about you? What would you tell a newbie?
I like to say, don't try to edit yourself. I ran into that problem that Louise was just talking about. You can't catch your own mistakes. You know what you wrote. It may not have come out on the paper like that, but in your mind, you think you wrote it one way, and when you read it back. So that's why I say get beta readers and proofreaders, and that's why I say get into a writing community. But I also always tell people, self-publishing for me is something that you do yourself. So learn how to do it. As far as formatting, Louise is right. You want your book to look good. I had one book that went in wrong, and Amazon uploaded it that way, and I had the hardest time. So I learned to format myself. People will charge between $30 and $100 to format your book. I can show anyone who knows Word how to format a book in less than 5 minutes. It's very easy. So I think you should learn to be self-sufficient if you're going to be self-published. I tell everyone, don't spend money. Don't spend money on book, baby. It's Lulu or whatever it is. I think there are other ways to get your book published and not spend $2,000 and $3,000. When I started self-publishing, as I said, I was sick. I was in the bed. I hadn't been able to work, and I didn't have money. The first cozy mystery series that I published from the bed, doing my own covers, and I sold enough copies in 3 months on a 99-cent book. And a caveat to that, if you sell on Amazon for 99 cents, they get 70% and you get 30%. So that's about 30 cents I got per book. And in 3 months' time, I sold enough books to make $17,000. I always tell that little story to say that, and I didn't put any money in the publishing of it. Now, the marketing of it is different. I spend $25 to $50. So I always say it's easy to do. Amazon makes it easy to do. So my advice is to learn to do as many things for your book as you can, and get in writing communities so that you can learn other aspects or meet people who can help you find a good editor or tell you the ones to stay away from. Or, you can go to Fiverr and get a cover for, even though the name is Fiverr, you can't get the cover for $5, but for $10 or $20. Maybe not spend $700 on a cover.
Yep.
Watch your money. That's my advice.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's one thing that, like, when I saw the prices on Book Baby, I said, wait a second, it might take, you have to invest your time. You have to invest, you have to make the commitment to actually learn how to do this stuff. But there are so many helpful tools out there. There are templates. It's not rocket science. It's just going to take you some time. And I also wanted to recommend YouTube. Was amazingly helpful this last time, because every time I needed just an answer to a question, I would just type it into YouTube, and there's somebody out there with a 3-minute video that will walk you through whatever it is that you need to do.
That's how I make all my covers. Yeah. I had Adobe Photoshop, and I wanted to put a shadow on something. So I query on YouTube. YouTube is a great place to be.
Yeah, it is a great thing. And I wanted to touch base, since we're all out there, I wanted to touch base about branding, because when you're actually presenting yourself, it sort of touches base with the pen name idea. But when you're presenting yourself as an independent or a self-published author, what is what do you feel about how you present that brand as a writer? Like, what is your writer brand? Gwen, how do you present the
When I talk
micropress?
about my own work, I tell them that I write compelling mysteries that are anchored in the place and time, because they're all historicals. I do the 1920s series. I do the one in the 1870s, but everything I do is historical. You will find that the history of the place is very accurate. It takes an amazing amount of research to do one of these books, and I think that probably is the way that I've most branded it. And I've been fortunate enough that I've had some people who, did some things like television spots on branding with me and that kind of thing. So it was a very good experience.
When you go to conferences, do you have the way that Mary Sutton, Liz Milliron was talking about sort of putting on our superhero suit? Do you have a certain persona that you wear when you go to a conference?
Not so much that I wear, but I do have a certain persona with the characters, and occasionally I will do the dressing as the characters of the book. So that's kind of fun. But it really depends on the conference. If you're going to a fan conference, you want to do something fun for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to a professional writing conference, that's a whole different game, because you're there to interact with your peers and to network, and it's not the same as working with readers. Readers, you really have to go in there with the idea of enjoying your time with them. There was a conference that was run in Indiana by Ball State for a long time called Magna Cum Murder. And it was a great conference for fans, because they literally had a group of authors every hour where that some of the authors would leave and other authors would come in, but there's a constant conversation between the authors and the readers, and they could ask any question they wanted to, and the authors there would talk to them about it. And I thought it was one of the most interesting formats for a group, because you're not a panel. Every author there is going to at some point be in here with this group, and you never know who you're going to meet there. I've met some great authors just sitting around and talking for an hour with them.
Yeah, I've had great luck in hospitality rooms, honestly, because everybody wants to sit down eventually and have a cup of coffee, and it's either that or the bar. But all you have to do is sit and say, "What are you working on?" And suddenly you're best friends. Louise, I was curious, what are you doing for your branding?
Well, it's tough, because in my early days, I wrote romance and suspense, and I recovered the rights in those books, and I've got them up on Amazon. But now I'm writing mystery exclusively. I've got the historical mystery series. So my branding on that series, I'm making every cover relate to every other cover. I don't know if you can see, but this is the first book, Gunshy. I make my own covers. I buy sometimes pre-made covers for other books, but for the series, it's hard to do that and have it be a branded cover. So, and I actually enjoy making covers. I use Brushbook, which is a program, online program, and I think it's fun to make covers. But anyway, it's the same image of my hero, Oliver, and a background that suits the setting of the book, and then one of the interesting females that he's going to encounter during the course of solving this mystery. And each book, and the same font and color for the title and for my name. And each book has that format, so that if you look at them all together, and Amazon has now got a new feature where they're giving you a series page, which is really nice. And all the books that are in a series together as a series, and so that you could see that. But anyway, if you look at the books in a row, it's clear that they're related to each other, and that this is an Oliver Redcastle mystery. And I just wanted to make the point that one of the things that I did learn about covers is how important it is for them to reflect the genre. So I've gone through several versions of this cover, and I think this is one I'm happy with. But it took me a while to figure that out. If you want to find a reader who wants to read the kind of books you write, you really speaks to that reader. And in this case, it's one who likes historicals.
Abby, are you finding that with your covers and your branding as well? Because I noticed when you held up your cover, it was so distinctive.
So this one is published, is traditionally published. The all the ones that I did, you'd have to go and look on my Amazon page for that I did myself. As I said, I did them on Photoshop, and a lot of times I would get pictures and then just put filters and different things on them and add things, add a dog, add a map on some of my books. Right now, so when I started self-publishing, there was still that stigma that you spoke about earlier in your introduction. You know, we didn't get the kind of love that traditional published authors got. And people looked down, you know, at the books and sometimes didn't even give them a chance, you know, right off. It was like, you know, saying things about whatever. I had a professional editor on one, and I got comments about I should have gotten an editor, you know, so it was hard. And so I couldn't do a lot of branding per se, like what Gwen was talking about, going to conferences, or you spoke on too. There weren't conferences and things for, even that was 7 years ago, that I could find that would take my book because it's POD. And for a long time, I didn't even do paperback. You know, I only sold ebooks because it was such a hard time. I got such a hard time. I couldn't get into bookstores. Now, even Barnes and Noble will take, you know, self-published books. So I haven't written a self-published book in maybe 3 years. I have a series now that I'm working on that I hope to publish soon, self-publish. And now, you know, I can do those things, but I branded myself through, I think, social media contacts and networking. I got 10,000 Twitter followers. I got 10,000 email subscribers, you know, and I've spent time on Facebook, and I built a community where people go, oh yeah, I know Abby. You didn't, my name didn't appear on lists and I write Cozy Mysteries and Cozy Mysteries groups on, you know, on Facebook, and they say, who's your favorite author? It's always traditionally published authors that they name. You know, my name didn't appear in those lists, but people knew Abby Vandiver's books, you know. So it was a smaller world that I had to brand myself in. And now it's sort of like that author you spoke about earlier. Now that I'm in the traditional world and I'm in a bigger world, and I can go to Boucher Khan, I can go to Malice, and they'll have my books there in the bookstore. People are looking again at my self-published book. So, you know, I'm kind of reversed on that. I built a brand after I became traditionally published that helps my self-publishing brand name.
On that point, how important do you think social media is in support and getting the word out about your book?
Oh, I think it's very important. I don't know. People always say, oh, Twitter doesn't sell my books. Facebook doesn't sell my books. No, it sells you. People know you. They get to know you. And then when your book pops up, they see it, they store it somewhere in their memory, and it pops up again, and they go, oh, I know that book. Oh, I heard about that book. Oh, I'm going to buy that book. You know, and so I think it's a great networking. You don't get instant sales from it, I don't think, except for Facebook parties. I always get lots of sales at Facebook parties. So I swear by those. When I'm selling a 99-cent Kindle and not $11.99, you know, where Penguin priced my book. But yes, I think it's very important, because once people know you and your name, and they see that name on the book, if they enjoyed their, you know, friendship, you know, with you on these social medias, they'll pick your book up. So I think it's extremely important. And it helped me to sell a lot of books and for people to get to know me and my work.
I've heard in marketing that you need to get your book out in front of someone's face 7 times before they make the decision. Like it may not even register with them the first 4 times, but if you get it in front of them 7 times, it plants itself in their mind so that the next time they see it, they may go ahead and buy it. So I think, to your point, social media that way is a really useful tool. Facebook, Instagram.
And I never heard it put like that, but that is my thinking. I just didn't, I haven't said it like that, but that is my thinking. I don't know about 7, but definitely as many times, even just you. It doesn't have to be your book. It can be you as an author that you get in front of them, because then they're curious. Oh, I liked her. She said this, she did this. And oh yeah, she writes books. Let me check her book out. And
I think that also keys into your idea of joining a writer's community, right? Like, and on that topic, what is Gwen? I'll ask you this question. What's your advice about joining like all these writers organizations that are out there? Not only Sisters in Crime, but RWA, MWA. Do you think that has value for self-published writers?
It has value, but with a self-published writer, you need to be aware of which ones are important to you. I think Sisters in Crime, for any female mystery writer out there, they should be part of, because it is the best as far as learning from each other and being willing to take chances and supporting each other's efforts and helping them, because this is what it's about. And for a self-published writer, they need that probably even more than the traditional writers do. And you can also find the experts that you need to be a writer. I asked a question involving a type of sheep that they were raising in Scotland in the 1800s. And within 15 minutes, I had a sheep farmer from Scotland contact me.
Of course.
So you don't have that kind of community with every writing group. Mystery Writers of America, I think, is great for traditionally published mystery authors. I'm not sure it's as important to the self-published ones, because even though the stigma is fading, it's still there. And you're going to find out that as a self-published writer, there's a lot of the awards programs that are closed to you. There's a lot of discrimination in what you're allowed to be part of. And you have to judge each group onto what its value to you is. And, one day I may change my mind about joining Mystery Writers of America, but I don't think it will be until I've at least reached some sort of bestseller list, because frankly, I don't think they're interested in my career.
Well, I think you're right. I think that's part of the indie self-publishing mystique, or the constraints with us. We are still running into some of these barriers that all we can do is it's any part of your business plan is to take a look, you do your research and decide if the $50, $75 a year is going to be money well spent. And if not, there's somebody out there that'll, take it, that can actually help you.
Right. I agree with Gwen about Sisters in Crime. If you look at those lists that they don't allow us indies on a lot, practically everyone who won an award is a member of Sisters in Crime, and they win them time and time again. So it's a great place. I agree with that. That's a really good writing community. I think Goodreads is a good writing community. Facebook has good writing communities, groups. So I agree with her. And she's right. I never thought to spend $115 for MWA, Mystery Writers of America, even though now I'm traditionally published, because I don't think they cared about me when I was an indie. So I agree with that. That's a good point.
Okay. I'm seeing a notice here that we have 15 questions to go through, and we're supposed to wrap it up at 4:30. So if everybody's okay, I'd like to then segue over to the Ask a Question section, and we can see what folks are bringing in here. Okay, the top question is, as a self-published author, and sorry, I'm looking at my screen here. As a self-published author, how do you get a wider distribution to libraries and bookstores?
Well, I live in Cleveland, but I'm pretty sure this is nationwide. There is a new thing, that's a technical term, thing. There's a new thing where you can go. They will allow self-published ebooks into their system, and also some libraries will take your book. They will take it in two ways. They will take it as a donation, where it won't be cataloged, and so no other libraries in that system besides the one it's in will know that you have it, or have access to finding it. But sometimes they'll catalog it. Before I was traditionally published, I showed a librarian my book. She read it and she put it in the catalog, and they even bought some. I also understand I went to a librarians convention, a reader's advisory, and they, in their library journal or magazine or whatever they have it, you can actually buy ads. This is where publishers put their advertisements to sell their books. They're allowing self-published authors to do that. There's an indie project among the libraries where they are giving people awards, self-published authors awards for their books. I think that if you just go to your local library and you ask about getting your book in, you can. Now, that's just, your local library in your local area. What you were talking about early, CreateSpace used to do, and I think Smashwords does, and Draft to Digital does. They have a distribution, and so does Ingram and Sparks. I think that's what it's called.
Ingram Sparks.
And they will get your books into libraries as well. There's no money in that, of course. It's just the satisfaction of knowing that your book is in a library. Some people write for money. Some people write for glory. I've got this many sales, or it's in this many places. But it's just nice to know. So there are ways now for indies and self-published books to get into the library.
Most libraries, if you talk to the acquisitions librarian, they'll have a form of some kind that you can fill out and give to the librarian along with a copy of your book, and they may put it into the system for you that way. I've done that with a couple of libraries here in Florida that actually got it in. You can order my books through the Pinellas County Libraries. So that's an advantage, but you have to pretty much go to whatever the library system is and speak to their acquisitions librarian.
In a marketing sense, for the audience out there, go to your local library and ask for our books. And that way our books can in a library. And I will do the same for you if you ever ask.
There's also, I don't know if every state has them, but there's a lot of regional conferences or book fairs that librarians attend. And if you have your books there and it relates to their state, they will purchase it to go into their libraries. I sold several to the Kentucky library system through them at the Kentucky Book Fair, which is held every year. So
we had luck with that. We did an anthology with a local angle to it, and the local libraries all took copies of the anthology because it had a reference, that was something specific to that location. So you're right. I've got another question then. In our experience, what's the best digital platforms to self-publish on?
Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon.
Yes. Amazon is the monster in the room. There is no way that you can get around publishing there if you're going to sell ebooks. I have tried Draft to Digital. I've tried Smashwords. I've done Kindle. I've done Nook. And as of 2 years ago, I stopped on all the other platforms and put everything onto Kindle because that's where the money is.
I did the same thing. I was on Smashwords, but it was so hard that they require you to format it differently at that time. Every time I made a change in the manuscript, sometimes, or a change in the covers, I had to go back to, and also it's hard enough to promote a book on one platform. You had to do it for the two different. So I made a decision actually early this year to just go with Amazon and to go with Kindle Unlimited, and that's paid off for me. It's made life easier.
While we're on the subject, Louise, could you explain just briefly what Kindle Unlimited is for those folks who may not know?
When you upload your manuscript to Amazon, you have a choice of signing up with Kindle Unlimited or not. And at first I didn't, because I thought it would be better to distribute, to Kobo and Barnes and Noble and the other. I thought that would be better. But if you sign up with Kindle Unlimited, that means you cannot distribute your book to other venues. But the people who on Amazon who are pay for a Kindle Select, Kindle Unlimited, can read your book for free. And then when you calculate your royalties, part of your royalties is, this is interesting, I think. I mean, I was kind of blown away by this. Amazon knows how many pages they have read.
Yes.
And you are paid by how many pages they have read. So if they read 2 pages of your book and put it down and never picked it up again, Amazon knows. But if they read the whole book and they go on to look for other books of yours and read those whole books, Amazon knows that too.
And
you're paid for that.
Right. But if you read those 2 pages and put it down and you pick it up a year later and read the rest of it, they know that too. And they will pay you for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually
another thing though. Go ahead,
Abby.
Another thing is true to that being in Kindle Unlimited, that's KDP Select, is the best bang for your buck. Everyone should put their books in there. You have to renew it every 3 months, but it automatically renews, and I don't see any reason you want to take it out. But that KDP Select is only for digital. So you can actually put your book other places, your paperback book if you have one, but it's too hard to market. Sometimes I stick a book somewhere else, my earlier books, but I'm in total agreement with Louise. Just if you just go Amazon, you won't go wrong. The only thing about it is Amazon has about 9 million books. So when you publish your book and you put it in there, just know it's in a sea of 9 million other books, and make sure you get your marketing together to get that book. It's good to put it on a bestsellers list or somehow make it visible.
Now, as a publisher, what we made was the decision with the ebooks to go to Kindle, but our paperbacks are actually published through Lightning Source.
Okay.
Heard of Lightning Source?
Yeah.
It's similar to Ingram.
Oh.
It is Ingram. Lightning Source, Ingram Spark, they're all part of the Ingram company.
I'm going to write that down. Lightning Source?
Yes. There's an advantage to me as a publisher of going through Lightning Source in that it can go into the Ingram catalog.
Oh.
And I can advertise it in the Ingram catalog. And also, because I belong to the Independent Publishers Association, I can put that book into their catalog, which goes to the libraries.
Okay. Yeah, all of us won't have that distinction, but yeah, that's smart.
But like I said, it's an individual thing. You have to see where your book sells.
Well, yeah, but I tell everyone, don't try it. It's just too hard to market to Nook readers and Apple readers. It's just too much marketing. I always say about a book, it's 10% writing to get your book to people and 90% marketing, and you don't want to have to spend your time in different places because you will sell less books if you have to spread your time marketing across different platforms. Just give it to Amazon. They'll take real good care of it.
That's what I found. I'm advertising with Amazon ads, and I advertise only the first book in my series.
Okay.
And it's a loss in what I pay for advertising, but it's a gain, it's a profit because I get good read through. And if they pay 99 cents for the first book and they like the book, they'll pay more for the other books and they'll read all of them. So I think that's the advantage of writing series.
I saw a question and asked a question about that. Should you just write one book? Martha, earlier when you said I write one book a year, and I would say no. Self-published readers are fickle. There are so many self-published authors, especially in the cozy mystery genre. If I take 6 months to publish a second book or a year, they've gone. They've left me my fold and they've moved on to other cozy mystery authors. So it's best when you're writing as a self-published author to keep your books coming out. You'll see that the best-selling authors are authors that have 10 books to a series, 15 books to a series, and they publish a book every other month. So that's always my advice. And if you can't write that fast, it's okay. Just do 2.5 books or 1.5 books before you put the first one up so that you can finish the second half to whatever book it is and have it out soon. Now you can put pre-orders up on Amazon so they know the book is coming and they'll stick by you, because you'll read so many reviews that say, I love that book and I can't wait for the next one to come out. And believe me, they won't wait if you don't hurry up and get it out. So
no, it's true. Especially cozy writers or cozy readers traditionally are such fast readers. They'll go through a book a day,
right.
So you've got to have the product out there or you've lost them. I mean, they're on to the next series. So you're right. I wanted to circle back, you guys. We have this question that came up earlier. Should you ask for the source documents on your book covers? Are they the property? Are they your property? Or are they the artists? I know from my experience. Yeah, it's my property. I hire a graphic designer to design my covers, and it becomes my property. Gwen, is it any different for the micropress?
It is in respect to this series, because this one we hire one artist for the series. She does every book cover for it. And she retains the rights to her artwork, but for the book cover, that I can use any way that I'm not using to sell just the cover image. So for that, I would have to license it.
Mm-hmm.
There are places, if you decide to do your own covers, there are places, Dreamscape, Shutterstock, where you can get to use the cover in a book. But there are also fair use that you can use, pictures that you can use that are on the internet. Sometimes they're copyrighted pictures, so you have to be careful. But a picture of a house, there's no copyright probably on that. In my series, in my first cozy mystery series, it's called the Logan Dickerson cozy series. I took pictures of houses, different houses, a tent. I took a tent. I took a Maya mound artifact. So, and then I filters and things on those. So yes, if you're creating your own, then you of course own it, but you have to be careful about whether you own the picture that you put on there.
Exactly. Because the photographer might own the rights to the photograph,
right.
The copyright. So
buy from Shutterstock for it comes with a contract and what rights you have. So that's
But I've got another question. What are the red flags to look for when hiring an editor, a proofreader, or copy editor and cover artists? Louise, do you wanna field that one? What are some red flags?
Well, I haven't hired, and I've done it all myself, so I can't really tell you, but, there are always problems when you're working with someone, something like this.
I don't think that you can see the red flag beforehand unless you read reviews, about that person, or you speak to someone else. I'm thinking about hiring this editor. What has anyone, you ask in your writing group, has anyone worked with this editor or know anything about this editor? But usually, you can't tell ahead of time. There's no red flag. They say they're an editor. They have their website. They have testimonials. You believe them. You go along with that. But that's why it's good to be in a writing community, because you can
Look
ask.
at predators and editors.
Yep. Do you want to explain that, Gwen? Maybe folks don't know
There is
predators.
a website called Predators and Editors. If you go there and you look up an editor, it will tell you if there's been any complaints. Also, Writer Beware is a very good site to go to and look this information up. If you're going to hire an editor, and I do recommend that you have an editor, and if you don't know one, or you're not in a group that has professional writers in it who are willing to look at your work, you need to have an editor do it, because after a while you have looked at your words so much that you don't see what's missing.
I agree. I think it's part of doing the same research. And Abby, to your point, going back to the writers community, if you're thinking of hiring an editor, it's just ask around, talk to your friends and say, I'm thinking about using this person X. What do you think? You can usually tell right away. The word gets out. Somebody's like, oh my God, he or she's fantastic, or I love his work, or don't go near it. Right. Folks will give you their opinion. So I always use that as sort of like a guide, the way you would do a Yelp review, right? You check it before you hire anybody. But
and if they charge you a whole bunch of money, don't pay $1,500 for an edit. I don't think. That's my opinion.
No, I agree.
Unless you have 1 million readers on your mailing list, I agree with her. Don't pay that much for it.
Exactly. We have a question. Do you recommend using a publishing service like Scribe Writing, for instance? I don't know what Scribe Writing is. Does anybody else know what that is?
No. Is that like Scribner? I don't know what that is.
I don't think so. It's calling it a publishing service.
Oh.
So I can't.
Amazon should be your publishing service. So that may answer that question.
Okay. Has anyone had any experience with a publicist, using a publicist, and are they worth the cost?
No. I've had experience through Penguin. They assigned me a publicist, but they're not worth the cost if you're self-published, because publicists can charge up to $15,000. And you can do what a publicist will do. You can get out there and sell your book.
I agree. What I've done is I take a look at the cost, and I roll it back against sales. And if you're going to end up spending more money on a publicist than your sales, that just doesn't make sense. So, sorry. Crowdcast just sent me a reminder that we need to get rolling with this. Here's a question: how do you determine the right price point for your book?
Oh, you have to remember that you're not Stephen King. I tell everybody that someone will write their book and then they put a Kindle up for $9.99. Oh my goodness! In my opinion, that's too much, because you're asking someone to take a chance on someone they don't know. They don't know your writing. They may, as Louise said, the cover, draws them in. You got to have a great cover. But if you think about when you go to a bookstore, what do? You look at the cover, draws you over to the book. Then you turn it around and you read the blurb on the back. And then you may open it up and read a paragraph, before you decide you want that book. You got to draw them in.
That's the advantage of a series too, because you can offer the first book. Some writers offer the first book free, but you can offer the first book at a very low price, and then the other books at a more reasonable price.
Yes,
And
I
if your
agree.
first book is, if they like it, they'll go on and read the others.
I have seen people give their first, they have 4 books in a series. They give their first book away for 99 cents or for nothing, you know, they give it away. And then the second book is $2.99. The third book is like $4.99. And their fourth book is $9.99. And I look at their rank, because that's a good way to tell how many books they're selling. And their rank is really low. That means they're selling a lot of books, but they've drawn readers in. And that's what you have to do. So don't overprice yourself, because people don't know you. You know, they don't know what to expect. Self-published books are shorter than traditionally published books. Self-published books, especially cozy mysteries, are anywhere between 35,000 and 60,000 words. That's not like a traditionally published book where the word count is 80, maybe 90,000. So they're not getting as much. They're getting 128, 150 pages. So don't overprice yourself because you worked 10 years on a book and it's your baby, because you want people to read it. So I think that is super important. It is okay to give your book away, marketing wise, for free, and it's okay to price your book at 99 cents, your ebook, because Amazon won't let you price a paperback price.
Yep. I'd also like, it's also very easy to go on to Amazon and see what comparable books are being priced at. You know, if you think your book is $9.99 and everybody else is selling it for $2.99, you're not going to attract the readers. Those folks are out there. The $2.99 readers are looking for the 99 cents. And this is a whole different strategy as far as pricing goes. I just want to mention we've gone over our time from 4:30, but if it's okay with the panelists, we still have these amazing questions in here. We are allowed to use Crowdcast until 5 o'clock. Are you guys game for a few more questions, or do you need to jump off to do something else?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. It's amazing. I love the fact that we're getting this response. I mean, I hate to shut it off. So, okay, I have a question. Amazon has the exclusive right to distribute the digital version of my book, my self-published book. Can I also offer a digital version of my book to libraries?
Not if it's exclusive with Amazon, no.
Exactly.
I don't think so,
Yeah, the answer would be no, because of the restrictions within the Amazon model. You would be able to publish an ebook on Amazon if you didn't restrict it, and also publish an ebook through, say, draft to digital for the libraries, but then you lose your Amazon distribution, your exclusive distribution. It's one of the controls that Amazon uses to they're funneling everybody to Amazon. They don't want you to go somewhere else. They want you to stay on Amazon. So, as a self-published author, are you finding one book a year won't cut it? I think we've answered this question, Abby. I think we need to actually, as you mentioned, you need to get more than one book out, depending on your genre, depending on your output. Some folks just don't have enough time in the day to put, to publish 3 or 4 books a year. But I do know full-time authors who are traditionally published who are putting out 4 books a year. So it just depends on what your plan is going to be. Do you guys agree with that statement?
Yes.
I think if you're a self-published author, you have to put out more. And traditional published readers are not the same. As they will stick by you and wait that year for another book to come out. So I think if you're doing self-publishing, you have to plan on having more than 1 or 2 books a year out. That's my opinion.
All right. I have a question I don't think we can answer. Can you recommend a good beta reader group? I'm not giving my
Oh, on
beta readers
Goodreads.
away to anybody.
There are ones on Facebook, but I've never tried them. There are beta reader groups on Facebook, but I've never tried them. I might in the future.
And
I
a
have
follow-up.
a friend. We met on Goodreads. Her name is Catherine Dion. She writes too. She lives in California. We have never met. We met on our first books in 2013, and we read to each other. So we call on the phone, and I'll have 2 or 3 chapters ready. Same for her. And whoever chapters they are, the other person will read them. So that's my beta reader. And if you find, a writing partner, a critique group, or a writing group, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's so important. You'll have a beta reader because people will offer to read your book. And if you have more than one, you're going to get more than one point of view, and you'll be able to, fix your book if you need to.
Yep. And that works both ways. You'll want to actually offer yourself as a beta reader to them, right? So it's a mutual beneficial society.
Most libraries have a writers group that you can join and find beta readers in.
Do you send your book to the beta readers before you send it for copy editing or after copy editing?
Before. Because what about if there's a problem in logic or a problem in continuity or flow? Yeah. They should be the first ones to get it.
I agree. Also, because occasionally with the copy editor, I have to pay them. So I want to make sure that my book is as solid as it is before I send it to the copy editor, because I don't want a lot of back and forth with the copy editor because it's going to cost me money, right? I want to get it as solid as possible. Let's see what else. We're making our way through these questions. Oh gosh. All right. Is it true that if an author wants to get her book into Barnes & Noble, into the bookstore, or have the capability of having the book on Barnes & Noble's shelf, you must have an ISBN number from Bowker instead of KDP's number? Anybody want to? That's a deep rabbit hole. Does anybody want to touch it?
No, I think if you want to be in the bookstores, you should probably buy an ISBN from Bowker. At this point,
I agree with that. Because it comes up Amazon when you pass it through that scanner, the barcode on the back, the ISBN barcode, it's embedded in there who the publisher is. And I don't know that they would be happy. Barnes & Noble would be happy to have Amazon publishing, I don't know, on the back of their book, but self-publishing. I've never tried that. But I also have heard that every Barnes & Noble won't take a self-published book anywhere because of POD, but that there's some will. So you just have to go around and check. But that's a good question.
I guess I've decided that my main sales are going to come from ebooks. It's just too much of a hassle to. However, I'm surprised how many paperbacks do sell. I'm not promoting them. It surprises me sometimes, but I'm expecting that mostly I'm with the ebooks are going to be my market.
I think you're right, Louise. I think if ebooks and Amazon are going to be your market, Amazon uses an ASIN number that's completely separate from the ISBN number. And if you're going to focus specifically on Amazon distribution, you don't really need an ISBN number. But in my case, because I'm stubborn, I had a packet of ISBN numbers that I bought. They never expire. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be identified under my imprint, Buccaneer, as the publisher and not have Amazon identified as the publisher. And in that case, I needed an ISBN number because it identified me as the publisher. But I had to also buy the barcode from Bowker for my cover, which is a whole nother step that you're going to have to go through if you want to do it. So that when somebody scans my print on demand book, it comes up with the price and it comes up with Buccaneer as the publisher, not Amazon. Now that said, having done that just in October, I got about halfway through, and Abby, I've been listening to every word you've said about Amazon being the focus and Amazon being the focus. I got halfway into that and I thought, why am I doing this? I mean, who really cares that, except me, that I'm the publisher of this book? Nobody. What I should be focusing on is how do I get to my readers, right? Not that it's my book that, I published. So will I use ISBNs next time? I don't know. I may just completely roll over to the Amazon model and go that way. But these are all great questions.
I don't think that for paperbacks, Amazon doesn't give ASIN. Those numbers are only for ebooks, but I'm actually trying to check my theory out.
No, they give you Amazon gives you an ISBN. It's a free ISBN, but it's exclusive to Amazon.
For your paperback. ASIN are only for ebooks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have
certainly can buy your own. You can certainly buy your own like you did and put it in instead of the ASIN for digital. And they will give you a free ISBN for your paperbacks. But it's good to buy them in bundles because one ISBN from Bowker's costs $125 and 10 costs $250 or somewhere around there. So and you have to have a different ISBN for every format. So for digital, for paperback, for hardback. So when you buy 3 individuals, you are actually spending more money than you would if you just bought a pack like you did, Martha, which was the smart thing to do.
Yeah, but the question is it even of any value now? Right? Like if Amazon wants, I do, obviously, because I did it, but let me tell you, it's a boatload of work. And if you're just gonna self-publish an ebook, I'm not sure that you really need to do that. But anyway,
I agree with that.
Well, I had a serious talk with myself and I acknowledged that I'm just not up to all that work. So I just decided to make life as easy as possible. And to just go with Amazon and advertise through Amazon. And it's paid off so far anyway.
I think that I'm the odd person out here. I believe you need an ISBN that you own for your print book. I think that it adds the ability to get the independent bookstores who absolutely hate Amazon to actually carry your book. It also helps getting into a Barnes & Noble if you have an imprint that doesn't come up Amazon, because they're going to look at that and they're going to look you up in Ingram. And I also think that it helps to get a Library of Congress number for your print book. It doesn't cost you anything to get it, except for a copy of the book that you have to send to the Library of Congress. But you do have to set up an account with them, and it is a little bit more work, but I think it's worthwhile because the libraries order through the Library of Congress numbers.
That's really smart. That doesn't come up often when people are talking about self-publishing. So that's a very good point that Gwen brought up.
And it makes a great conversational topic when you're at the family dinner table and somebody's putting you down about your independent book, and you can say, well, at least I'm in the Library of Congress.
Exactly.
I thought of that.
Oh, it's great. It ends the argument right then. Right? Stop. What have you done? Right? Okay. Sorry. I must be getting punchy here. All right. We're still working our way through. Is it exclusive with KDP for ebooks, or does it include print books?
It doesn't include print books.
No.
It's just ebooks.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. If you own an Apple Mac, they're saying you can publish directly into Apple Books, which would appear to be easy. Has anyone tried it this way? I have not. Anybody tried publishing straight to Apple?
Well,
I
no,
cannot use an Apple.
Smashwords and Draft 2 Digital will publish to Apple among others, and it's the same process. You know, if you want to go that route, that would be the easiest thing is to go with Draft 2 Digital, and they will they will format the book for you. So that's probably the easiest thing to do.
I agree, Louise. They actually would create the EPUB file that goes straight to Apple. Draft to digital would be the way to go if you're specific to Apple.
But if you have a MacBook, I don't know that you can do that. Macs confuse me. So that's a good question, but to ask someone who, you know, does all their work on a MacBook. I'm a PC girl.
What's the word count on your average book? Well, that's a good question. Abby, we know.
Self-published? Yeah.
What's the word count on your average self-published book?
Mine are usually around 60,000.
I'm sorry?
Around 60,000 words. But I don't know that that's the average. That's just what mine are.
Do you think that's an ebook average, 50,000?
Between 50 and 60,000, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's more like 35 to 50,000.
Okay.
Well, maybe that the average is. My mysteries are between 50 and 60,000.
I think it's the genre that you're writing in. It's always less than traditionally published, but like sci-fi would be maybe longer than that. But sci-fi is traditionally published can be 100,000 words, you know, or fantasy.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the genre you're writing in, but it's always less, in my opinion, than a traditionally published book in that same genre.
I agree. I think in traditionally published mysteries, you're looking at 80 to 90, maybe 95,000 words, roughly 320 pages. So I think with ebooks, it's definitely trimmed that, but that also is reflected in the price, right? So, I mean, that's what you have to balance. We're finishing up our questions here. We're running right up into 5 o'clock, and thank you all. I do have to have 5 minutes to thank everybody. But how long are you tied to Amazon once you sign? Dun, dun, dun.
Once you sign up for KU, it runs for 3 months, and then you can delete it. So it's a 3-month commitment. If you don't want to delete it, it'll just automatically renew. But that's it.
Right, but you can also unpublish it, you know, once you.
But you can't publish anywhere else for the remainder of those 90 days.
Right. There's a question here. How do you set up an imprint? I'm afraid that's a topic for another podcast. That's a big question. Yeah.
Form an LLC. Yeah, just form an LLC.
Yep. Or a sole proprietorship. If you're not going to publish anybody else, you could possibly do it that way. But that's you're going to have to do a lot of research. I don't think we can answer that question here. Sorry. How about I've heard authors that
with my lawyer hat on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Put your lawyer hat on. Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I would say an LLC, sole proprietorship, is just not a good thing to do. You would want to do an LLC or a corporation, and that's really easy to do. Us lawyers charge $1,500, but if you go to your Secretary of State website, it's 3 pages long. It requires a name for your company, an address, and a signature. That's all it requires. And then you just you go online to the IRS and you get an EIN. You're done. You can actually do both of those things in about 10 or 15 minutes. So that's the best way to start your imprint.
Wait, I have to write that down. It's a much better answer than what I was using. All right. I've heard authors that do get self-pub books into Barnes & Noble never get paid. I'm not sure if that's into the bookstore, the actual bookstore. I know that I get paid for Kobo, my EPUB file on Kobo. Has anybody else heard that Barnes & Noble doesn't pay?
Are we talking about online or bookstore? More
It's
brick and
not
mortar.
clear. It's not really clear. It just says I've heard off.
I've published books on Barnes and Nobles online, and I got paid. And I can't
I did
answer
too.
about the brick and mortar.
With the
Okay.
paperbacks, I distributed through Ingram, so I get paid just like any other publisher gets paid for them.
And our last question is, could you mention copyright and how that works?
It's cheap. Do it. Yeah, all you have to do is go to the U.S. Patent and Copyright site. It costs. It used to cost $35. I think it might be $55. Yeah, I think it might be still $35 unless you're doing something else, and it's $55. But it's cheap, and it's a good thing to do. But also remember that they call it the poor man's copyright. Remember how you used to mail it out and it gets postmarked and you never open it. But anything that you publish, you have a copyright on it already. And the only difference in a copyright that you get by actually publishing your book and going through the United States Copyright Office is whether you can argue on rights. If it is a poor man's copyright, the court will not listen to you. If you have an actual copyright from the United States government, then you can go into court for copyright infringement. But how many times as an author, self-published author, are you going to drag somebody into court to say you took my book? Probably won't happen. So, if you feel comfortable and you have $55 or $35, whatever it is, if you feel uncomfortable about sharing it, I would say get one. But I don't know of any widespread incidents of people stealing other people's books. Or if you feel like, you've written this masterpiece, like Martha was saying earlier, and it's just the greatest thing ever. You get your copyright and you feel like you might have to go to court one day to stand your ground, then you need one from the government.
Abby, is it true that, I believe it's true, you cannot copyright a title? Is that right?
No,
you can't.
You can't copyright a title.
Right. Okay.
You can't copyright words. But your book is, it's a lot of words and it's a story. So you copyright your story, but you can't copyright words. So yeah, there was this big story, a big thing about this woman. She used a certain thing in her romance books, and she copyrighted it and it went through. But when push came to shove and someone else used it, right, and she tried to sue them, the courts threw that out because you can't copyright a word, because everybody has to be able to use the word. You can't say that's my word and only mine.
I remember this. It was like a genre word, and they were like, "No, you can't copyright just the word."
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
You look up any book and you'll find that the title, there are like 20 books with the same title, so.
Now, you can copyright, you can trademark words if you use a certain font and a certain color, like McDonald's uses the arch for the M. You can copyright that because that's not, you're not copyrighting the word, right? You're copyrighting the font and the color that you're using. Trademark that. Yes. Thank you, Gwen. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this could go on, but I'm going to have to put the kibosh on it because Crowdcast is about to shut us down. But I just wanted to thank you all. This has been so fabulous and so insightful. I've enjoyed the heck out of it, and I can't believe we've been talking for like 2 hours. But I just want to say, on behalf of myself, Roger, Lisa, Malice, all of our panelists, and this is for everyone, I want to thank the Florida Gulf Coast Chapter of Sisters in Crime. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope we were able to give you some insight into both traditional and self-publishing with this webinar, and that this information will help you navigate your path forward as authors. I'd also like to mention that if you live in the Tampa Gulf Coast area and you want to learn more about Sisters in Crime, You can contact our current president and membership chair, Wendy Dingwall, at it's flgulfcoastinc@gmail.com. I'll put it in the comments category. And please join our meetup group to keep informed of additional panels and podcasts in our meetings, including our January chapter meeting, where our speaker will be a cold case investigator from the Hillsborough Medical Examiner's Office. Hope to see you all at a chapter meeting soon. And self-publishing indie panelists, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fabulous. Thank you again. And everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Check.